design is I'm trying to wonder, like what I would like to have an iOS project in my portfolio, and I just don't know if this is good enough. I don't feel like it's there, stuff with color and everything like that. Um, but I do want to have an iOS app. So the whole point is like, this is your empty state as you come in. Hey, let's get started. Let's create a poll, right? So this would be your first thing. You can kind of choose if you want to have it be a public or a private poll. And when it's a private poll, you can assign it to your squads. Public poll like this. And the goal is you kind of just go through and create. Let's ask for suggestions. Then give it the poll name. The duration. That looks great. Criteria. We want to make it on a 5-star system because we want to make it easy. Hey, let's add another one. And then I wanted to have like a tip, to like make sure that people didn't go crazy with it. Let's assign it to these people. These are my squads that I'm in. And then you'd create it. Now, the thing that I did differently was I kind of cribbed this from another app that was more about like challenges, like people would challenge you, so you'd sign up for challenges. And then their thing, how they do it, which I thought was really nice, is that the challenge would be like a 20-second video, right? And as you would scroll through the app, kind of like Tinder or any kind of swiping thing, the video would start auto playing and it would be like, hey, join me on a push-up challenge, blah, 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 blah. So I wanted to take that idea of, having, when people are scanning through these different polls that are out there, instead of having text, a wall of text, I wanted to have video. So they would take a video of them recording and, they'd record, live recording here. Yeah. And then you'd view and create and ignore the dashboard. That's just butt ugly. But then this would be like somewhat, so this is, instead of a picture, it would be like the video playing, auto playing of this person saying like, hey, what's the best hike in the metro area? And then you'd be like, nope, don't want to see that. Oh, rate Quick Trip. Okay, cool. And it'd be really quick, right? Oh, here are the questions. Yeah, I want to join that poll. Boom. And that's kind of what Squad Polls is all about. So I'm definitely willing to take any and all design feedback, and even if this thing is viable as a portfolio project after implementing improvements.
Love it. Okay. So if everybody wants to take a minute and let's see, we got a thread going for Nathan. Drop your comments, questions, anything in there, and then we'll go over them in just a minute.
I do think that's interesting for people to see the results of the polls. One of my favorite things of Twitter is when people put polls and then like they have like 3 options, but only 2 are viable. And the third one is just like, just show me the results, because just everyone just wants to see the results of polls. And whenever you click on the just showed me the results, it's always like 40% of all responses. So people just want to see poll results rather than actually filling out polls themselves.
All right, let's jump into the feedback. Okay, so I guess you guys already talked quickly over that first question from Colton. I wonder if there's a way for other users to see results of the polls. Colton, did you have any other commentary there?
No, just as he was going through, I just was curious to see like what other people would rate that. That would be more of the reason I would use the app than to per se get to put my own polls. I would want to see other people's polls.
Yep. Cool. Olu, you had a comment about iOS design guidelines?
Oh yeah. So it was something I also struggled with in the past. So sometimes what I did then was to read the guidelines, just skim through everything for you to understand how it works. Then once you have some of those, just go on Google to look at some of the iOS designs and then try and come up with something for yourself too. It makes it better for you because not all apps with traditional has to look like an iOS design, just like material design. So sometimes you could just mix a little bit of some things like your top border, and your bottom. So.
Awesome. Okay, and then I made a comment. I'm wondering if you can tighten up your margins across all the screens. So I would highly recommend, if you haven't done this already, to turn on a grid or a column for your spacing and alignment on these. And it generally, like, most of your stuff kind of follows it, but then it'll be like most of your content follows it, and then there's like your title's just a little bit off or something. So I just really try to create those clean, especially on the left side, create those clean lines all the way up and down for all your content, and that will take it to a really clean level. Okay, Carrie had a comment, good use of white space. I also like the usage of polls. I would recommend using iOS guidelines and also view design concepts for social media apps. I wonder if you could pull that off to make Q4TB, Quest for the Best, case study worthy. I think you can. Any other clarification there, Carrie?
Yes. So on one of those pages, just before we talk about the whole design style, on one of the pages, I think it's the one with the video that you have with the placeholder on it. The icons down at the bottom, I think they seem a little bit stretched and they're kind of too big. I would recommend kind of shorten them, even shorten them if you can as well. I would also say that when I'm looking at this app, I don't really think of social media, I don't really get that feeling from it. And I don't know if you're trying to sell it as social media or something else, but I would say that there are plenty of social media sites out there. There are plenty of, design concepts that deal with social media, Nathan. So I would definitely say start looking at those and seeing if you can kind of, still have your own style and your own design, right? And your own look for it. But you want to make sure that you're conveying that to people when they look at that design, because, social media is supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be interactive and all of that. But I will say that you're in a good start so far, but I can't wait to see, the rehashing of it and the reiteration. So yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so I did a screenshot. It's a little bit hard to see because the hotspot, it shows up when I try to did screen share, but that add another criteria button. So this is a weird thing where there is such a thing as visually centering something, based on visual weight versus like I just click the center button. This may be kind of an impossible scenario with the way it's designed, with the icon being by itself and then the text off to the side that's like underlined. So you may want to try to like actually create like a button out of it with maybe like an outline or something like that. You could do something really subtle, but if you give a border to it, then it will feel like a shape, and then you can center the shape. But when it's an icon plus text and you're trying to center that can be a hard thing to do. So it visually looks like the weight's a little bit off, so I would just play with it. There's a whole bunch of different ways you could approach it to solve it, but I would try to fix that. Marlene commented, I really like the diversity you're bringing into your portfolio. Excellent. I don't know if you want to say anything else there.
Oh, yeah, sure. I really like, it was Carrie who commented about the white space, and David about the visual, and the balance of visual versus like the actual like pixels. But yeah, I was wondering if like you could possibly like put something else there, maybe some more content. I know that you like just started this, but yeah, I feel like it would really even out the screens if you like kind of added stuff.
Cool. And then I know we gotta get moving along and jump to the next people, but I had a couple last comments. So one was on where you have the two buttons side by side. They're kind of like short and kind of like floating with like some fat spacing between them. I would try some different iterations there. One option that just came off the top of my head is like stack them vertically and actually do your buttons full width. And maybe that's a consistent pattern that you would use throughout your app. A lot of times we want to give nice big touch areas for both like left or right-handed users. It's not all the time that your thumb's like right in the middle of the screen, because you've definitely got space to work with there. So I would look at some other existing patterns of how buttons like that are used, and try an iteration exercise there. And then my last comment was on, so your final screen where you're showing like the actual like polls as like cards that you were swiping on. It felt like the style of those cards did not match the rest of the app. Like, if I remember correctly, they were like pretty square, whereas like all your buttons and stuff have like a kind of a rounded aesthetic. So I would try to make that consistent. It kind of felt like a little bit almost jarring to me, like, oh, this is like kind of like a different screen than what I'm experiencing everywhere else. I do have to say overall, like, really like where you're going with this. Got a great aesthetic here. I like your use of primary color and being very conservative where you're using it, how you're using it, and not getting like, too crazy with things. So I think you're doing a great job and off to a great start. Okay, any other questions before we jump to Lauren? It looks like you're next, right?
Thank you, everybody. Good feedback.
All right, Lauren, go ahead.
Thanks, David. I'm going to share my screen. So what I've spent this past week and a half doing is I redesigned my Build Week project, which is a website for a textbook rating and reviews website. It's also a platform for teachers and students to share learning tips and learning materials. So just to give you an idea, before it looked like, okay, it's not loading now. Before it looked like this, now it looks like this. And I'm pretty much in the high fidelity stage now. And today I'd like some feedback on anything that looks odd or anything you wonder about in the design, so I can finish working on this. So this is the landing page. Should I zoom in on anything? I have several pages to get through. I'm not sure.
Whatever's useful.
What? Whatever's useful?
Whatever you'd like. You're in charge.
Okay. So this is my landing page, search page. I wonder about these icons, if like the blue is odd or if it doesn't stand out enough. Individual textbook page with reviews here. And I'm wondering if this button is too big. I made it match these ones up here, but maybe it should be colored or it's like the wrong shape or something like that. This is the articles page, since I got feedback that teachers wanted a place where they could read articles related to teaching. And then this is a page that I was really having trouble on. I think I made 13 iterations of this page. Yeah, oh no, 14. Okay, so basically what teachers wanted in my new research is they wanted a kind of professional Reddit for teachers, but because the rest of my site is so image heavy, I didn't know how to design this site that's just going to, this page that's just going to be, you know, like a question and then some explanation and then a bunch of responses. So this is my latest attempt, and then scrolling backwards, I tried something like that, where that doesn't have a white card, or it's like half and half. Basically, you can see I'm struggling with balance in this, where there's like blue on the top here. It's the same thing. Here it's on this blue bar is on the top and then on the bottom. No color, gray, only in the reply bar. So if anybody has any ideas about where I should take this design, that would be really helpful as well.
Awesome. Okay, let's jump in, drop some feedback in the thread.
And anyone just speak up if there's something you want me to go back to. Sorry that this isn't Sketch.
It'd probably be most helpful to just keep sharing those last, just maybe zoomed out just a little bit on those last screens that you were showing.
Got it. Okay.
Can you actually zoom in on those blue bars? Like, what is exactly on that blue bar?
Yeah. So this one right here for like writing your own post is teachers can include an image or a link, and then they can post it. And then this bar up here just has the category in which the post is. And then down here on the bottom, there's comment, share, and save.
Got it.
And if you have any ideas about how to expand that, that would be really helpful too, because I'm kind of at my wit's end after 14 iterations.
All right, let's jump into the feedback. Keep writing if you have some other thoughts. Nathan, you want to go first?
Yeah, I feel like that first one might have came off a little bit more harsh than it should be. So part of the reason is because I was just listening to a podcast. The guy behind Spotify, who I just think they have the best. I love Spotify. I love everything that they're about. He was talking with some investors, and he even like talks about how like the whole concept of jobs to be done, right? And how like that just is the overarching theme of everything. Like, what's the job to be done for audio? And that's why they feel like podcasting. So this would be like a thing. Some people would be like, oh God, why are you going into podcasting? But they would say the job to be done is like audio, and podcast fills into that of just listening to things. But I just wonder if you're allowing, like, what's the job to be done by this website, and allowing yourself to add on these nice to haves rather than focusing, because I do think that you've made some nice improvements, but you know, every time spent, you know, on a nice to have can take away from your like core purpose. So that's just all I have to say. I'm going to post that podcast just because it's really good. That guy is all in on Spotify. That guy knows what he's doing.
Okay. Thank you. What was I going to say in response to that? Yeah, I interviewed teachers, and I'm trying to go off like the original prompt that I was given for Build Week, but many of them said, if this is just book ratings, like I would rather go to Amazon. Like why would I go to your weird news site if I can already go to like Barnes & Noble or Amazon or somewhere where I trust, where I could just look at book reviews anyway. So I think that was my partial motivation to making it more of a community website than just a reviews website and a third-party purchase. But yeah, thank you for the comment.
All right. Oh, I had a quick comment. Loved your use of photography on that main page, just design-wise, aesthetics-wise, the nice use of serif. Everything was really well done there. Colton, you had a comment?
It was really similar to Nathan's. Just I thought you could maybe split that out into a second site, just because it was quite different, similar to what Nathan was saying. But you pretty much answered that, your reasoning behind it. But I did like the your improvements. That made a big difference.
Thank you. Do you think I should just honestly get rid of the Reddit part? Like I mean, I wouldn't cry if I had to get rid of it, but like if it doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense, and I should just delete it.
Because I know you're talking to Colton, but honestly, what went through my head is like, why are you even focusing on the bookstore when your users are telling you like there's this thing that needs to be made? But then it's a portfolio thing, so I get it too.
Yeah. It's a process.
That's definitely what I thought as well. What Nathan said was like, if they're wanting this, make that, because they already have a source for their other stuff.
All right.
And I do want to point something out here that's important considering portfolios. Like, remember, we're not just trying to paint a picture of like, oh, here's like the perfect path we got to the perfect end result, right? If there's a major pivot or something like this in the middle of your case study, like that actually makes for a really good read and shows that you're like being thoughtful about your design, the research, the feedback you're getting and stuff like that. So like there is no problem with that. I'm not saying do it. It is up to you. You are running the show. But like when I read through a case study and I can see someone's like, oh, we tried this and like, wow, we hit a wall here. And we, then took on this research project, whatever, figured out a new path forward, tested it. This is the right path now. We completely had to shift directions. Like, I'm like, yes, like that's the type of person I want on my team, because I know they're actually solving problems and not just like guessing along the way, if that makes sense.
Yep. It's a good way to think of it. Thank you.
Excellent. Okay. We still need to move through quickly. I'm just going to make a couple other quick questions just design wise. So on kind of the Reddit style page, it felt like those blue headers are super heavy, and it looks like that's like your primary color you're trying to use for your actions in other places. But then that category header like is not an action, so it's nothing I can do. But it's like very disruptive to
Yes.
like my visual aid, the balance of the page. So I'm wondering, could you do your category instead of like this big old header? Could you do it as some sort of like little badge or a tag or something on the card that's not heavy, it's out of the way, it's minimal, and then just only reserving that primary action color for actual buttons, links, things that you want to click on. And even that screen you kind of showed in the middle with like those big icons, like those large icons I view as more kind of like little like images or like little like placeholders. I don't even know that you need to use a primary color on those big icons, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Anyway, just a thought there. Let's see, and then Marlene, you had a quick comment?
Yeah. So I love seeing how this has kind of like transpired and iterated throughout the time. I forgot, what did I say? Oh, okay. So I like how you basically like stripped everything and then you started adding everything again. I do the same thing. But then I agree with David how the blue bars are like pretty heavy compared to like all the other screens on the page, or all the other components on the page.
Yeah.
So I was like wondering how you could incorporate like maybe a lighter blue, or kind of have that the left column be colored and then the right column be not colored, or vice versa.
Mhm.
But yeah, so it was like the last like 2 screens, I believe. So yeah, I forgot what number they were, but
13 and 14.
yeah, kind of how like
Excessive.
12 and 13 are different colors, and how you used more of the gray in 13, and then in blue you used like a lighter. But then there was another screen where you used just like no color at all. So I wonder like where that happy medium can be for that, maybe grayscale or the one with no color. Yeah, so like that 6 and 13.
Okay. Thank you.
Cool. Okay, we're gonna move on. We need to pick up the pace. Okay, we're gonna move over to Colton.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, so I just shared the link to that if you want to look there. I'll also share my screen and walk through it. This is just my portfolio. Looking for general feedback design-wise. If it makes sense, I've changed some stuff around since last time. And then also the headings. I'm trying to get these down to just like one straight, like super simple sentence that explains like that section, and then breaking that down into a little bit more detail, but still keeping it very small. So I've got a lot of those. So if there's something I could say word-wise to make these make more sense, that would be helpful. And then any other design feedback in general.
Awesome. Okay, everybody drop your comments in. I'm just going to jump into some feedback really quick because there's some things I can just share based on our hiring manager feedback. So if you're having thoughts, comments, drop them in, please. But I'm going to jump right into the feedback. So let me, let's see. I'll share my screen.
You should be able to share now.
Yeah, you're good. I think it's here. Okay, so wait, how do I navigate back to, there we go. Okay, so what I'm seeing on this page, I really like it. It's really clean, nice flavors here. Um, let's see. Yeah, with the titles of your case studies, we generally try to stay away from just like the name of the app, right? So do some sort of description, or if there was a particular challenge that you face or problem you were solving, you can actually phrase it as that, use that as your title. My one question here is like clicking this little link, read the full case study. Is that the only way for me to see it, or is this whole card going to be
The whole
clickable?
card is a clickable.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, this just feels kind of like small and out of the way. I wonder if there's maybe a little bit different treatment to do there. But overall, it is pretty clean, pretty cool. And then if I jump in here, my one feedback really quickly, actually I have a couple of things. The overall width of the content is really wide, and I know the text is large, so it's easier to read, but like, especially like here when I'm like reading these really long lines here, like this is a little bit too wide for me. So I would generally, like, I point people in the direction of say like Medium and how they do their content there. Go with a more narrow column for your text. Your images can stretch wider than that. That's fine. But I would narrow that column a bit. And then on your section headers, try to tell a story with just your section headers and your images. And I think you also do it like it says wireframing, and maybe there's no way around that. But something that hiring managers told us was they really don't like it when all they see is like research, wireframing, high fidelity, testing, and things like that. So the exercise that I have had students do in the past to remedy this is, imagine we're hiding all of the body text on your case study, and all I can see is your headers, images, and any like maybe like call out quotes or anything that's like not body text. Does it still tell a story articulately? And like, can I see your process? Can I make sense of everything? Because the way that a hiring manager will read this is they're going to land here. First thing they're looking for is like your final executable screens. Like, what was your actual deliverable? So I guess that may be this image here. And then the next thing they're going to do is just start skimming through, like literally at like a pace like this, just like really quickly looking at those headers. And then if they like what they see there in the organization, it tells a story well, then they'll like find a section and actually like start to read a little bit of your content, if that makes sense. So like, I don't think like you're super far off. I think you got a lot of good things going here, but those are like the main areas that I would make some improvements on.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay, anybody else have comments?
Do you have like an Instagram with all the stuff that you've reupholstered? Or some kind of way to like, say if someone's curious, like, because reupholstery is just like obscure enough where it's really like interesting, and I'm like, I kind of want to see what he's reupholstered, right? So if we're trying to add some like flair, obviously you don't want to like show your upholstery on your portfolio, but say you have like an Instagram like where you have like all your pieces that you've reupholstered or something like that, where if someone is that curious, they can check it out when they click on reupholstery.
I haven't done enough to make an Instagram for it. I've only done like one chair, but it was a wingback chair. So like, I'm still learning how to do it and stuff, so I don't, but that's a good idea.
Yeah, I only say that because when I hired a designer in the past, and like their Instagram was like what made me hire them, because you're like, okay, this person's smart. This person like gets it and they fit me. So I don't know. It's my own little 2 cents.
Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, let's move on. Ruth?
Okay. So I've been working on my portfolio that last week or so. And so from Friday, I added a little bit more to my labs case study. So it's almost done. I just need to figure a little stuck on what to do with the hero section, trying to make it unique. And then I just need to write the conclusion of the case study. So for feedback, I guess just, to backtrack. So the theme is sort of like sunset. So each of the different case studies will have like a different color theme of the sunset. So the revitalized one is more of a purple to like a golden, orange, yellow sort of sunset. So that's the flow. And then just to see if it's like too much color or
Very cool. And you dropped the Figma link in.
yes.
Oh, that says it doesn't. Maybe I don't have access to this. Is this on your personal Figma?
Yes.
Let's see.
Usually if I copy the link and paste it, it usually enables access, but for today, for some reason,
Huh.
it's not. Oh, okay, I think it works now. Okay. Can you, there you go.
Yeah, there we go. It's opening.
Yeah, and I'm still working on the logo. So the nav bar looks a little empty on the left side because I haven't figured out a logo yet, but save it for later.
Okay, drop comments in. I'm just going to start going through a couple things really quick. So I guess I can't majorly comment on like the hero image section because I don't see the image on there and how that is finally going to be delivered. What I will say though is like make sure that your priority on that hero image is on like casing your work in a great way. If your sunset scheme and like the gradient thing here work with it, then great. But also just remember what the priority is, and maybe if you have to cut that gradient out there or something to pull off the hero image in a different way, that other question is so I really like the way you've styled like your titles and your subtitles and things like that. That's really clean. The font you've picked is very readable. I do worry just a little bit about the width of some of the text. I think it's actually okay, but you might also play with like bringing that in even more narrow and leave some white space on the edges. Organizationally, it's very nice. And I think you've done a nice job on like your section headers, describing things rather than just making a statement about phase in your process. Yeah, really cool design-wise. I think this is clean and coming together nicely and has a good amount of personality. Anybody else have any comments? Drop them in the thread, or you can just unmute yourself and speak up. I'll make another quick comment here. This with one student I was working with earlier. So inside an actual case study, so our hiring managers, they said the very first thing when they do when they open a case study is look for the final executed screens, which oftentimes are at the bottom. It's just the way people have done it in the past, but they made the comment like, why not just put them at the top? Because that's the first thing I'm looking for. So I think that's what you're going to do as far as dropping those images in there. Some students were confused and wanted to put like the content around like their hi-fi designs up at the top as well, like with all their text and everything. That's not what they're looking for. It's literally just that hero image at the top, just showing like, here's my final executed screens. And then you would, drop down from that right into the beginning aspects of your process. So I think you've done that here, but I just want to make that note because a couple students were messing up on that.
Yeah, I kind of have it scattered. So like in the top, like in the second grading color section is the hi-fi for the donor. And then the bottom is the hi-fi of the dashboard. So I'm sort of thinking like, I'm like stuck on like how many like mock-ups or the final hi-fi design screens should I include? Because originally I kind of had it like a laptop. So sort of, let me see if I bring it over. So sort of like this, but it still looked empty.
Yeah, that's a bit too small. I would want the focus to be on the images.
So,
don't feel like you have to drop every hi-fi screen on there, right? Like just like what's a good sampling of what you want to showcase. Different ways to do the image, or maybe it's just the screen itself. Sometimes they're overlapping, sometimes they're in a grid. There's a lot of different ways you can do it. Yeah, but like as far as like the layout of the content and organization goes, just like imagine like you're sitting down with someone that knows nothing about your project and you're just going to start explaining this whole thing from start to finish, how you got there. Like that's the flow all your content should have. Okay, awesome. Let's jump to our next. We are now to Olu. Is he still here? Or did he disappear?
He actually had to step out, but I do have his design files.
Okay.
I was wondering, should we skip him or should we?
Is he like done? He's not coming back, or is he going to be back in a second?
He won't be back.
Oh, okay. Yeah, pull him up really quick, and we can review it.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, awesome. So this was his redesign. It's a Homos application tablet used in specific stores for New York City. Currently been used. He did some work.
And this is the original version, right? He has a new version of this from what I understand.
The first 5 screens, he said it's a redesign of the first screens. So these look like possibly the redesign. Let me try and see.
You might just need to use your arrows and just step through them.
All right. I don't think I have access to their, oh, they're there. Wait. Text, comments, screens. Okay. Let's see, so this looks like the landing.
Oh, wait, no, this looks like a completely different thing.
Okay, we're gonna run away from that. Okay, cool. So I'm guessing that this is the redesign, so we'll just click through it. So he had the categories and we clicked shelter, and then From shelter, we found this shelter near us, so we clicked view details, and essentially this is where it was. So yeah, okay, impact. And let me see the description that he gave me. Homeless application, using research findings. Okay, so I guess that was it. But this app is for tablet for homeless people to use to find.
If you use your left and right keyboard arrows while you're looking at this, does it let you just step systematically through it? Because I think these are the old screens. So keep going past it.
Better Life Vietnam.
No, we may have to do this later because it looks like he's just loaded like tons of different designs into the same prototype.
Wait, impact. Okay, so this is probably the redesign.
It might be. Yeah, this looks familiar.
Okay, so can you click through this? No.
So let's hang on that one screen we landed on just a second ago with those bigger icons. This one, yeah. So let's stick to this and just do a quick critique of this. So from the context I know, yeah, this is an app to be used by homeless population or people that are connected to a homeless population to help them find resources they need. And sometimes that is finding a shelter. Sometimes that's finding food or healthcare. Like you can see all the different categories here. So some of his considerations are around accessibility, poor eyesight, sometimes like missing limbs and things like that. So he's actually done a decent amount of user research going out among homeless populations in a couple different cities to arrive at some of his choices. But we still want everybody's commentary on, like, say, some of the color scheme, how you feel when you're looking at this app, and any design recommendations that you have. And I know he's not here, but like, if you have some recommendations or thoughts or questions or whatever, just go ahead and unmute yourself and say them and ask them.
I wonder why he has to, or why you would like wrap that, all those icons, because obviously it's like the blues, like the cascading of blues, right? Like, does that even need to be in a container? Or can the icons stand alone? But then I kind of get like why he would do that too, but that's kind of the one thing that's standing out to me.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. It's like they're already big icons on their own. Like, you could probably get rid of that container and it would be fine. Anyone else?
Yeah, just looking at this screen, the map pin drop, I know it's probably like left aligned with the bus, but it looks like it's like not in the middle of the bus. Maybe he could make that smaller. That just bothered me. And then I wondered what it would look like to have the two buttons, view map and view details, left aligned, just to see.
Yeah, I think it would be worth probably turning on a grid inside that card. And yeah, I agree. I think some of the icons are like slightly different sizes. And yeah, the pin, the bus, the clock, like those all vertically should be aligned with each other. Another question I have is like, I know that soft shadow is being used to show some differentiation on like the shelter nearest you, but I don't know that we necessarily even need a shadow on it. Maybe an outline would be better. So there's probably some things we could play with there. And then another comment I have is just consistency on buttons. So on the Espanol button up on the top, that's different than the view map button, which is different than the view details button, which is then different from the view next nearest location button. So we've got like 4 different styles all happening on one page, plus then the other icon buttons, you know, over to the left. I know those are different because those are meant to be kind of like big touch areas. But I kind of want some consistency among those buttons. And then my one last comment is the blue is interesting to me. This kind of like royal blue. It's like, I know blue kind of conveys safety, but for some reason I'm like not necessarily like feeling that when I look at this screen. It feels a little bit like kind of cold and corporate, and I've actually given him this feedback before on the logo, and it may just be like kind of a combination of the logo and the blue or the colors or something, but it kind of feels a little bit like early days Microsofty to me. Okay, all right, let's move on. Sorry, Mai and Carrie, we're gonna get to you. We're moving a little bit slowly, but we're going to go a little bit over time if that's okay. Carrie's just chilling in the background. Ain't no problem.
I just dropped the Figma link, and then let me share the screen real quick. So I'm just working on the feedback from last week about my landing page. And so this is kind of where I'm at right now. There is like a huge consensus that they liked the kind of like the original like hero section better. And so just trying to find ways to like lay things out and then for the landing, but keep it simple. So just feedback on the hero and how to like direct them to connect and about me. And then I just wanted to see what it looked like. So if there was 2 case studies, so I just put some placeholder things there. But the other point was like I was debating between view more or just view work. And I don't know if it's like that big of a deal, but since there was so much discussion around like having creative titles, just thought it'd be good to check. And and then the cards would be clickable too, or they can click that specific word. But so
cool, awesome. All right, we've got a small enough group. If you have commentary, just like unmute yourself and just go for it.
I really like the changes that you made, especially since I feel like you merged the previous iteration with this now iteration. I feel like maybe you could do something about the margins. I remember my first portfolio review, David got on me so much about margins, like so much. It was so true. Like you don't even realize that the margins, like the My Creations and then the content with like Quick Street and Future Product, if that was like aligned, I feel like that would balance out the page more, as well as the bringing the farmers market online. Looks like it's almost like running into the picture, as well as like the picture is it's like smaller than the picture below it, or the screen grab is smaller than the picture below it. And then besides that, I really like where you're going. Also, if you could like scooch it up and like condense the content more, I feel like you could really make the page a little fuller. Also the buttons, I feel like the buttons could be bigger. I like big buttons because I like can barely see, so I can't even imagine like what other people see. Yeah, those are my 2 cents.
Awesome. Anyone else? And I'll be back in 1 second. I gotta get my charger.
So I'm looking at this. Can you bump that out so that it fit it to the width, Mike? Try the other one, because I'm thinking of what people are going to see on their screens. What is that? Scale up or down to fill? Try that one.
Fit to width.
That's what she did, but it didn't work. But basically, when you pull that up on your computer, that's going to take up most of your screen. So I'm thinking, where's your fold going to be? So what all are they going to see at first? So from what I'm looking, it looks like they're going to see just like maybe My Creations, and that's it. Maybe trying to get them to scroll down faster to see what else is there, but they'll probably know to scroll down. That's just what I'm thinking. Like, what are they going to see first?
Sorry about that. I almost made it. Can you guys hear me? Okay, I'm going to jump in really quick. So the comment on, so the alignment one's an interesting one because you've got like, yeah, my creations, and then you've got your cards. And this may just be a Zoom thing, but like the contrast between your background and the card itself is so subtle it almost doesn't look like it's there, which then makes the content inside the card feel misaligned. So like 100%, this may, I actually probably just need to open it up in Figma to just verify for myself, because Zoom compresses the colors and those really subtle grays never come through properly. So if there is enough contrast, it may be that your alignment looks perfect. So take that one with a grain of salt. The images on the cards, 100%, like I want that to be consistent on each card. It should be the exact same size, the exact same type of shape and everything, because that feels a little bit off between them. The comment on the buttons, I think the width is fine. They're just too short. I would just make them a little bit taller, give them a little bit more breathing room. And then a question I had, so I love the Japanese touch points on this. The flag up in the top right, is that just to like be there as a flag? Or my thought was, is that to like switch the language on it?
It was to switch the language on it, but I was having a hard time finding like a good like flag, what's it called? Like SVG to download.
Sure.
That had, yeah, so.
Well, the good thing is you could make your own SVG, right? So that's a pretty quick one to draw in Figma or Sketch or anything. Okay, awesome, cool. So that is what I was thinking it was. So if it was just there as like, I want a Japanese flag up here, then I was going to say get rid of it, because you have the kanji there, next to your picture. But since that actually is going to be switching between languages, that's really cool, and I like that.
I actually have a question on that. So like, is there like a standard size to put? Because like I also like contemplate, like at first I had it where it was like the flag, like both like Japanese English flags, and they could like click back and forth, but it just looked weird. So I wasn't sure how to best do that.
Yeah, and it's interesting because do you show like the state, or do you show what you'd be switching to?
Yeah.
I don't know that I have like the best right answer for you, so I would just do a bunch of iterations on that and try to test this with people and see what makes the most sense. You could even just try doing, like, I know the flag is cool, but you also might just try doing text as well, English and then Japanese or something like that. All right, any quick comments before we jump to Carrie? All right, Carrie, you're up.
All right. Yeah, I know a lot of people are going with like white space, and I've seen that with the trend with a lot of designers. But I really want to, the kind of companies that I want to work for are like, companies I think that are really like transgressive in their designs. So I'd probably want to be like small to mid-sized companies as well. So that's what I'm really shooting for. And this is pretty much my, landing page of the portfolio. These are my case studies down here, as you can see. So with that being said, I would send a Zoom link, but it's a lot in this Figma file alone. So David, let me know if you still want me to, not a Zoom link, a Figma link. So let me know if you still want to do that. But this is pretty, you say you do?
No, I said it's all good, but if this is simple enough, we can just keep it to this. That's fine.
All right. There's also like the margins and all that stuff that I'm still working on, right? Trying to get down with the About Me section. And then there's also like the heading sections that I kind of played around with, as you can see as well, like with all these different case studies that I'm working on. I might just take your advice and just have the designs instead of like actual pictures, as far as like showcases up there, because that makes a lot of sense. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Just on the typography itself and on the layout itself, David, and just you critiquing it.
Yeah, this is really cool. One of the ways we grade your portfolios is like, have you added your own personal like touch and personality and flair to it? So definitely appreciate what you got going on here.
Really quickly, I apologize. On the case study, so I had to talk with you about this. Like, how does this look? Is the text legible? You know what I mean? Do I need to just play it on the safe side? And as soon as they click on the case studies, it is a white background, with a colored text or something.
I think your contrast is fine. It's the width of the text that is probably going to be a problem.
Okay.
Because like you're like it's the body text that is like going so wide that's a problem. So like literally like just get as close to like kind of a medium, like the medium, everybody's ready around to science is tons of testing what we know about users and eyes and reading and everything. So as much as you can, stay to a nice narrow column like that. And yes, your images can go wide. That's totally fine. Do not feel like they necessarily have to be constrained to that same width. It does create really nice lines if your text and your images are all the same width. But it may be that you want those images to go wider or go completely wide full screen. Test those out, try those. It's all good. But like above all, just make sure that it is readable and easy to scan. So that's my piece of feedback there. My other thought, so this is just kind of an interesting quick observation. So I love the color and the photo of you on the home page, like the color and everything matches the aesthetic, but you do not look happy to be there.
So
and you're such like a happy person, like charismatic guy, and I'm like I feel like this doesn't match like what I get out of you in meetings and everything. So I mean, you can do whatever you want there, but I'm just like, that was like my first impression was like, oh, it's just kind of like, I don't know, here's my portfolio. Whereas like all the rest of the style is like really fun and loud and stuff like that. But
so should I switch it out with like an illustration or something? Because
we're
just trying to find time to get like a professional picture with the same background image.
No, I get it. I get it. No, I don't have any specific recommendations on what to do or how to solve that. I do think it's nice to have like a shot of you and who you are and everything. So it's great. It's great. It's absolutely great. So yeah, I think my one piece of feedback is just on text width and readability. So if you can bring that in, I think that's going to set you up well. I haven't because we're like so far zoomed out on things, like I haven't taken like a really good look at like reading your headers and your content and stuff like that. Yeah, I think they're pretty good from what I'm seeing.
Let me know if I'm going too fast, by the way.
No, you're good. And I would just say try doing a version where you left align your headers. So when you bring the margins in on your like body content and everything, try doing some left aligned headers and just see how you like it in comparison to centered.
Okay.
It may or may not be better or worse. Don't know. Anyone else have quick comments?
I actually have a question for you regarding the width of the text. I saw a portfolio today while I was looking around that he used 2 columns. So instead of having text that would go from one side to the other super long, he had 2 columns. What do you think about that?
Sometimes that can distract from like trying to read through something. it on a newspaper, if you're confined to like, this is the only rectangular space I have to work with, and you're like, okay, I'm going to do like, 3 or 4 columns that I'm going to read through. That's one thing. But when you're on like a long form here where you're not constrained vertically, it's kind of weird to have 2 columns, because then it's like, where, like, do I keep scrolling and then do I read this first and then this first, or do I continue on like down here, or does that make sense? Like, I would rather on a long form just have 1 column that's just like, I don't have any question about where I should be reading or what's coming next.
That makes sense.
Obviously, if it's like you're kind of painting the picture, Carrie, at the beginning of your case study, you've got a few different tiny little sections kind of outlining like, hey, like let me like lay out the story here for you before we start. Like, that's okay to like put a few things, next to each other. But even then, like, do you need to do that? Or could you put that all into, a column or something that fits into a narrower format and is more readable?
Right. I have a question. I clicked on Cohen's one, and I really like the fact that he put it in a Figma file, because it kind of sort of looks like a legitimate website, because Figma's like prototyping is more fluid than InVision. So I was wondering, for the time being, if we did get an endorsement, but our site wasn't fully launched, well, our site needs to be launched in order to have an endorsement. But let's just say if we did get an endorsement, but our site wasn't fully launched, could I prototype this in Figma and, send it out to employers for the link?
I would say don't do that.
Okay.
Yeah, I would recommend get your site up. And it's not like, it's more like that would be just a little bit odd, and I can't guarantee how hiring managers are going to react to that. Just because like a portfolio site should be a site. And so if someone sends you like a Figma link, it's kind of like, oh, like, you're not done with this. Like, you haven't built this. Like, why did you send me something that's not built? Would be my guess as to how they react. So I don't want to put you in a situation where we're not sure how you're going to be received. I would say just like get it built.
Okay.
Okay. Any other quick questions, comments before we finish up? I am sorry we went like 20 minutes over. That was a lot of stuff we got through, and we can definitely be faster next time. Thanks again. Drop any questions, concerns in the channel or DM me. And thank you everybody for joining.